what's going to set a lot of these passives apart from the rest of the pack. It's just if you can use it all the time and it gives you value in the gunfights, that's huge and it's going to be strong.
Oh no, there's another squad attacking.
But let's kick it off.
Yep, get us
The
going with
first
your boy.
passive, my boy, Gibraltar. Now, Gibraltar's passive is one of, if not the most controversial passive ability throughout the ages of Apex Legends. Gibraltar's gun shield provides an energy shield that blocks damage to his upper body up to 50 damage while he's aiming down sights.
Mm-hmm.
And the passive actually has a 9-second cooldown if it's broken. Now, this passive is unique because it actually adds something to the in-game character model.
Mm-hmm.
And it has the fixed amount of health at 50, and that regenerates over time. Now, over time, the gun shield has been reduced in its hit points and has been nerfed. In Season 4, the gun shield went down from 75 hit points to 50, so pretty drastic change. And then in Season 8, there was another nerf that allowed for gun shield damage to bleed through, so kind of countering it absorbing an entire Kraber shot. And then also the damage dealt to a gun shield counted towards Evo armor.
Thank goodness. That was
Which
like
we
my
love.
number one thing playing
Love
against
that.
Gibraltar. I'm like, I'm going through all this work. I got to get rewarded in some way.
Yes. Now you do, which is great. But despite these nerfs, this passive is still one of the strongest because it's so applicable to gunfights. Sniper, check. Bubble fights, check. Urban fights, check. Early game to late game, check, check. It does it all, and I think that's really what's going to set a lot of these passives apart from the rest of the pack. It's just if you can use it all the time and it gives you value in the gunfights, that's huge, and it's going to be strong.
How do you respond to the people that talk about Gibraltar's hitbox and that it kind of requires him to have this passive to give him a chance? Like, you've played him forever. Is that how you feel? Is it true? I mean, walk me through that.
It's a really good question because I'm a
It's
Gibraltar
one we
main.
asked for a long time.
Yeah. And
like with the hitbox changes and stuff. Yeah.
Honestly, it's a hard question because we've just thought about it so much and stories have changed and design decisions have changed. And so the truth isn't really black and white on this one. But I think to cut to the chase, yes, the gun shield gives Gibraltar a tactical advantage. Is it a balancing tool for the large hitbox? No. Does Gibraltar need something else to account for it on top of Fortified? Probably not, given its current state. But for those of you that don't know, Gibraltar is actually very, very large. If we think about it in square centimeters, Gibraltar's hitbox is 79 square centimeters or 12 and a quarter square inches. Compare that to another legend like Bloodhound, who has a hitbox of 37 square centimeters or 5.75 square inches. So just over twice the size.
No big deal.
Of other legends. Very, very large. Caustic is not far behind. But the idea of thinking that the gun shield is a necessary thing in order to just give Gibraltar any chance at all, I do not think is true. I think that Gibraltar still is very exposed when attacked from the sides or behind or above, or even just out of surprise, out of the blue without activating the gun shield. But when you're consciously using this passive, it gives you a very, very strong advantage.
Yeah, I think you nailed it by saying, like you mentioned quickly, but just to reinforce, Fortified is the balancing tool for the hitbox, not so much the passive per se, which I think is a really important concept to get for people diving into this deep into Apex with us.
Yeah, and if Gibraltar can aim down sights, can see the enemy that's shooting at him, and block damage while dealing damage, it's a massive advantage. If it's just blocking shots, it's not huge just because, like you said, he's easy to hit because of the hitbox. So, really, the gun shield is an advantage if you use it to its fullest. It isn't really an easy way to get out of situations, but when you're up close, if you can really buckle down, use this passive, you're going to be winning a lot more gunfights than you would
Mm-hmm.
have otherwise. But it's also important to remember that there is a trade off here. You can't
Mm-hmm.
be using the passive and slide canceling, jumping, moving around like normal. But if you can, kind of crouch spam, ADS, focus on your accuracy, you're going to maximize this ability and it's going to be a game changer for you.
If you play into this one, it can be really intimidating to go up against, to say the least, as an opposing player. Like when you get into that head on fight with a Gibraltar and they are perfectly crouched behind that gun shield, you have to make up for a lot of damage that you
Yeah.
otherwise would not have. And that's a hard thing to do in fights. Let's do it. Let's keep moving though. We got number 2 on the list, and we're already moving away from what we thought it would be when we're talking about Valkyrie. And this is going to be a fun one to discuss because she's a different concept of a passive, to say the least. And I think it's interesting. For the majority of people that truly play Apex Legends, mobility is power. It's shown in pick rate. It's shown in uh, when we got the brief discussion about win rate a long time ago. But we can table that conversation. But truly, mobility is power and key to success. And while I do think there's a lot of truth in that statement, we can also say, though, with 100% confidence, mobility equals fun. So mobility might equal power, but mobility definitely equals fun, and that equals popularity. And so what we got with Valk, we got the passive VTOL jets. So quick description, you press that jump key while in the air to engage the jetpacks. You can switch between hold and toggle options in the menu on however you want to operate it to the best of your ability. This is truly the king ability of in-fight repositioning that's currently out there. Other movement abilities like Pathfinder's Grapple offer some benefits like speed, longer range aggressiveness, but the frequency in which you can use the VTOL jets in comparison to an ability like the Grapple is just immense. On top of that, when we start comparing passives to tacticals, I think we know that we got a pretty dang strong passive on our hands when we feel like, hey, this passive can accomplish a part of what somebody else's entire kit is built around. And that's kind of crazy in of itself. For a little breakdown of the VTOL jets, so you activate them, and whenever you press that button, whether you got it on toggle or hold, you're going to consume 12.5% of your fuel. Your max duration is 7 seconds in which you can fly. Your fuel refills after 8 seconds after the last usage and takes 10 seconds to refill from empty. And we say that to make the point that essentially you have an 18-second max cooldown on a passive, which is pretty fast when we compare it to some of the tacticals essentially in the game. It is kind of funny that we're talking about passives and our first two do have cooldowns related to them. I promise we'll get away away from that. But it is what it is. I will say though, this passive is freaking awesome. It's super powerful. It synergizes with the rest of her kit so well. You can preserve fuel by holding the tactical and hovering, for example, but it still just stands on its own. And that's what's awesome. You can go through quick repositioning tool with this, move from in fight to fight, and jump around from the ground to the roof, from roof to roof. You can keep your high ground advantage with Valk throughout your fights, and that's just a special ability in of itself. Um, I'll just throw in though, while we're talking about this passive, we're giving some tips out. Long flights during combat leave you pretty vulnerable. You're loud, you're slow. Can't be recommended as a consistent tool. But yeah, this is a great passive. It would be strong as a tactical. And that's how I think we know we got a really dang good passive on our hand. How about give me some thoughts on the VTOL jets before I go on to her other passives?
So I think Valk's passive, and I think we're agreed on this, is the strongest passive in the game. No contest whatsoever. It has strengths that are unparalleled, and the fact that you can achieve such incredible vertical mobility that other legends have to spend a tactical or even an ultimate to achieve
Mm-hmm.
makes her the best at almost anything. If you think about early game looting, Valk is the best looter. She's not going to be climbing. She's able to get to supply bins to ground loot
Mhm.
faster than anybody else, faster than Octane, faster than Loba. Like that just ability to, for free, get over obstacles is very, very strong in the early game. And
Mhm.
then if you think about the late game or even arenas, you're just able to get better positioning for free. And
Mhm.
like you said, Shay, this idea of the long, jetpack rides, probably not advisable. You can do it. There's definitely
Totally.
situations where you should, but the
Mhm.
strength here is the ability to burst. And that's where no other legend can keep up at all. You can't
Mhm.
be in East or West Fragment bouncing from floor to floor, building to building with Octane or
Mhm.
Pathfinder or Loba or Ash. You can't. Valk
Mhm.
can, and that is an incredible benefit. It's the best passive, no doubt.
It's so awesome. And I do think it's important to know you nailed it there, kind of talking about and further reinforcing it's a repositioning tool. Don't think
Mhm.
about it as like when we talk mobility, some of our mobility legends are a getaway. Like Pathfinder is an
Yeah.
incredibly strong getaway legend or a long push legend. That's not what Valk is, but that's not a bad thing. She's just really strong at what you're actually going to be doing more often than other that essential movement in of itself. So being able to reposition in fights is crazy. I think when we first got her introduced to the game, I said that this is like what the old Pathfinder zipline or grapple was used to be used as in combat, where you would just like, hey, I'm real quick gonna grab a roof in Skull Town, and now I'm gonna fly, like jump down on somebody, and I'm gonna grapple back up. You can essentially do that all the time with Valk, and it's really dang powerful. She also has some other passives. We're not talking beacon today, as we mentioned, but she has the jet fighter HUD. I think it's a nice skydiving recon tool. Mid game, you get to rotate with your balloons or her ult essentially now because you don't really get this option on Stormpoint. And it's nice to know, hey, if I'm landing somewhere, if there's going to be enemies or not. Hey, we're rotating through this area. Do we need to meet enemies in a certain direction? It's just nice recon. We really do value recon. And early game, really nice to find uncontested drops and track teams. How much value do you think you get out of this one?
You get a solid amount of value out of it. It's
Mm-hmm.
definitely better than nothing, and we think when we think about legends and what they're defined as, like we did a couple episodes back in our tacticals versus ultimates episode, Valk stands, alone
Mm-hmm.
with Lifeline and a legend defined by their passive. So much value packed into here that you cannot overlook it. And to think about the fact that she also has an incredible tactical and an incredible ultimate on top of having three passives, yeah, this is a slept on ability here that should definitely be rising to the top. We're happy where she is,
Mm-hmm.
but if you aren't giving Valk a chance, you should, because
She's
she's
breaking out right
powerful
now. Mhm.
and very, very fun.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
don't forget it.
No doubt. She's the complete package and just out of her passive. She's the complete package, and that's crazy. And so asking the question like why do passives matter? She's a prime example of that, as is Gibraltar, where so much power and strength is built into this part of their kit that you take this away, you're not working with the same legend anymore. And that's a huge reason why this passive truly matters to defining who Valk is.
Yeah, when you think about abilities that can win you a gunfight or win you a game, both Gibraltar and Valk have those types of abilities, and the fact that they're packed into the passive just allows you to really consider choosing them based off of how easy it is to unlock that power. If you know that it's there and you use it, it can outperform almost any other tactical in the game. Speaking for
Mhm.
both Gibraltar and Valk there, passives are no joke
Mhm.
and can win you games. So it should really be more of a deciding factor in who you're going to play and who your main is when everything's all said and done.
Boom! Whole squad down.
Hey, brother, not today. Maybe tomorrow.